أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الحمد لله الحمد لله الحمد لله رب العالمين نستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به عز وجل ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ثم أما بعد. We begin with Allah's name, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, giving all praise and thanks to Allah, the guardian evolver, the creator, the keeper and sustainer of all universes. We give praise and thanks to Allah for our very existence as human beings on earth. And we thank Allah for all of the multitude of favors and gifts, free gifts, that He, in His own wisdom, has chosen to give to each and every one of us, again, as free gifts. None of us as human beings had to pay a penny for these arms, for these legs, for all of the utilities of this physical body. None of us as human beings have had to pay a dime for this ability to breathe air in and out of these nostrils, to be able to drink water, eat food. There are many other creatures on earth that eat food that don't enjoy the food in terms of its taste. But Allah has made the food of the human being even tasty. And there are many, many favors that Allah has blessed us with that we don't even think about. We don't even give it a conscious thought. But we're here at Jumu'Ah, which is a period of time in the week that allows us to reflect on the vastness of blessings, free gifts that Allah has afforded each and every one of us. So Jumu'Ah is here to reinforce the love. The love for who? First and foremost, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For Allah being who He is and creating each and every one of us to be who we are. Allah has given us the greatest of gifts when He revealed His Quran to a mortal human being. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we are to have a love also for the Prophet, for the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who was chosen directly by Allah to convey the last revelation for all times to human beings. We have to also display a love for his Prophet. We need to teach our children to admire, to have an admiration for the Messenger of Allah, prayers and peace be upon him. To have an admiration for the Messenger of Allah. And when you admire a thing, you are giving your emotional obedience to a thing. When you understand language and you understand the origins of words, you have much more of an appreciation for the architects of language. And you have much more appreciation for the ultimate architect, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah has signaled certain thoughts, creative thoughts, that have entered the minds and souls of human beings for eons, that have been expressed. But when those messages reach the majority of people, the real essence of the meanings seems to peter out. And the same thing has become true for the Quran in the life of the average one of us as Muslims. The Quran has been on the earth in book form for over 1,000 years, for over a millennium. And many of us as Muslims in this day and time treat it as though it's just another book on the shelf. So we ourselves as Muslims have to return to the correct appreciation for the Quran, because the Quran is what Allah uses to establish his divine authority. And the Quran holds the keys to divine legitimacy. So we're here today at this Jumu'ah to talk about how Allah has established the Quran's divine legitimacy. And when we talk about legitimacy, we're talking about something that has the right to exist, but not, in this case, by man's authority. The Quran's legitimacy is established by Allah himself, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Highly praised is Allah, highly glorified is Allah. So Allah has given us a human example in the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And it is in that Messenger of Allah that we also owe admiration. You know, this word admire is a curious word. Admire is related to the word admiral. Admiral. Like in the Navy. Huh? Now we may ask ourselves, well, what is the relationship? The relationship is in the root word for both those words, which is mir. Simple word, M-I-R, which you will not find in any standard English dictionary. You won't find that word mir. You have to find it as you search for the roots of those letters within other words, like marine. Right? Whenever you find that MR connection, you're going to find it related to the water. The water. So to admire someone has a connection with the water. To be an admiral is very obvious. Has a connection to the water. Now you might see it in admiral, but you might not see it in admire. But if you understand what water means as a symbol of something which Allah created in the human nature, you'll understand that water has always been a symbol of emotionality. Emotionality. And just as water seeks its own level, just as water does not move with any sort of turbulence unless it is disturbed by an outside force, it is the same with the human being's emotionality. The human being has been created by Allah to be a lover and a seeker of peace. But if outside winds begin to blow, if outside forces begin to disturb the peace of that water, that's when the water will begin to show turbulence. And it's the exact same rule and principle when we're talking about the human being's emotionality. The human being's emotionality needs to be educated. It doesn't come here as a complete package like the average animal comes here, with a complete genetic package in terms of its existence. What it will do from birth to death is clocked into the animal's genetic framework. But Allah has not clocked every single thing that the human being needs into his and her genetic package. Allah left some things that the human being needs to achieve, he left it to circumstantial situations, to outside influences. So the human being has a genetic package, we have an instinctive package, but most of what the human being needs to succeed is going to be due to what the human being picks up from the environment. And if the environment is not conducive, or let's say in compliance with the natural genetic package that Allah created, that says, be good, be peaceful, be merciful, be loving. All of these attributes are clocked into the human being's genes. How do we know that? Because that's how every infant comes here. Every infant comes here seeking peace, unless it is disturbed by an outside force, a wet diaper, noise in the environment, etc. Other than that, when the baby is fed, when the baby is changed, when the baby is loved, when the baby has tactile experience with the parents, the baby is at peace. So the peace is a part of the fitrah of human life. This thing that we take for granted as Muslims, Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon. See, we take it for granted now. Assalamu alaikum, huh? And we don't register how important that term, salam, actually is for the life of the Muslim. It's not something to be taken for granted. It is something that is a part of the human being's very fitrah. So that emotional nature is what we're talking about. When we admire a person, we are giving that person a certain amount of emotional control over our lives. When we admire or allow our children to admire the so-called superstars of this world, we are giving our children license to be emotionally controlled, sometimes by remote control, by this world's powers and influences. We're giving them absolute control when we allow Beyonce into the living room. The things that we say as Muslims that we would never do as a conscious believer in God. I would never allow half-naked people into my living room through my front door. I would never allow two people, not married, to come into my living room, lay on my couch and begin to do whatever it is they felt like doing, or to lay in my bedroom and do whatever it is they feel like doing. We say we wouldn't do that, literally, for a person walking through our doors, some strangers walking through our doors, but we do it every day, all day long, through the television. We allow perfect strangers to come into our homes and influence us and the lives of our children through what they see and what they hear coming across that boob tube. Or now coming across these little gadgets that they carry with them to school, and God knows what they're watching when you're not watching them. But we allow these influences, and therefore they walk away with a measure of admiration for these people. These people have been able to get into their hearts and gain an emotional control over the thinking and the feelings, especially of our children, our younger generations. But those same parents sometimes will not foster in their own children an admiration for Muhammad the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sometimes we approach our children as though they're going to an extreme to even talk about the Messenger of Allah, to even talk about his attributes. Oh, don't get too extreme. He's just a man. He's just a man like you. Oh, God forbid if he was just a man like us. Allah never says in the Quran that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a man just like you. He told the Prophet to tell the people that I am a basharun mithlukum, just like you. However, I have been endowed with certain qualities that the average one of you are not privy to. Yes, I have been established as the Prophet, Muhammad speaking, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as a man with an uswa, a man with a balanced nature, just like all of you, except mine is Hassan. See, all of us have uswa, but all of our uswas do not approach the level of Hassan, excellence. So we have to stop allowing people to put our Prophet on the same level as the rest of humanity. If he was on the level of the rest of humanity, Allah would not have chosen him as the leader for humanity. There was something in the quality and in the excellence of our Prophet that qualified him to be the man out front, so to speak, when it comes to who a human being should fashion herself after, whom a human being should point the way for their future generations, their children, their grandchildren, and say, look at our messenger of God. Study his behavior, study his attitude, study his pronouncements, study his actions, his ways. And from that, you will have an adequate idea of what Allah is pleased with in a human being. So don't allow this world to create the people whom we should be admiring. Admire first and foremost the human being who was chosen over 1400 years ago to be the conveyor of the last and the final revelation for all times, Muhammad the Prophet, praise and peace be upon him. We have to place more emphasis on education. The Quran is the premier book of education in this world. The Quran is the only revelation in this world that has remained pure and perfect as it was delivered to its prophet. The only book. And the scholars of other religions admit that their books, the Torah, the Injil, and the other books of Revelation, have not been able to maintain their pristine purity in terms of how they were delivered, word for word, by God, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to his prophets and messengers. The Quran is the only book. Therefore, the Quran is the only book that has been able to maintain the purity of education and what education should mean for the average human being. We send our children to these schools, and these schools, public and private, that are outside of the influence of Quranic education and teachings and inspiration. These schools are actually designed to take what should have been a legitimate human, born into the world ala al-fitrah, upon the fitrah. And these schools, these systems, actually take human minds and make those minds, and therefore make those lives illegitimate. We frown upon illegitimate children being born. Children that can claim no real parents. No parents to take care of them. No parents who have signed on and who are willing to admit that they are the parents of these children, and therefore these children remain illegitimate. And we frown upon parents like that. but we don't frown upon illegitimate education. What do we look like bringing legitimate children into the world and then feeding them illegitimate knowledge? What is illegitimate knowledge, Imam Bilal? Illegitimate knowledge is knowledge that is not consistent with the human being's fitrah. Illegitimate knowledge is any knowledge that works against the growth, the development, and the evolution of the human being's fitrah, his natural-based nature. Most of us don't have a problem with that, because many of us don't even know it's happening. Education should be designed to bring out the latent potential and excellence that exists in that young mind. That's what education was designed to do, and that is what the Quran has brought back into the world as an idea for educating anyone who will read its pages and accept its guidance. The European got hold of that knowledge during the Renaissance, and he introduced the word education. Educe. Educe doesn't mean to put something in, which is what most of the schools think they're doing now. We have to open up that little person's head and pour in our degrees, pour in our learning. That is not what the word educe means, which gives us the word education. Educe means to bring out, to lead out. Whenever you see that letter E on the front of a word, like exit, it means to lead, to go out, not to come in. So education is the process of bringing out, but bringing out what? Something that already exists. Now, why is that an important idea for us as Muslims? Because if we think that our job is to put knowledge in, then we are canceling out the most major factor in the life of that person we're trying to educate, and that is Allah's influence. If we think that we have to be the ones to educate, that we are the ones to invent knowledge and concepts and teach them to the masses, no, Allah tells us in the Quran that it is Allah who is teaching all of you. So Allah is the ultimate teacher. The ultimate teacher. And all of us are students. And Allah has created us with a package called a genetic package that already has information in it before the parents taught it anything. Before the schools and the teachers of this world taught it anything. Allah already gave each and every one of us a package called the genetic package. You did not have to teach the child how to love. That love comes with the package. You didn't have to teach that child how to do these other very normal and natural things like have mercy and have pity and compassion for people. We've seen young children, when their parents are having a bad day, they'll come up to their leg or something, or hold their hand, or kiss them on the cheek. There are infants who will do this before they learn how to speak. They have that fitrah nature in them. And it's that fitrah nature, dear Muslims, that is in trouble right now in the world. Whenever you can turn on the computer, turn on the internet, and see videos. I saw a video of a 2-year-old girl. She couldn't even been 2. She had to be maybe 1, maybe a little better than 1. She was able to stand up, but she wasn't able to stand on her own. You know what age I'm talking about. She was able to stand up by moving upside the wall, putting her hands on the wall, and then making steps along the wall. But along with these steps, the parents had taught the child how to twerk. So here you got a 1-year-old girl in a diaper, holding herself upside the wall, twerking. And if you don't know what twerking is, good for you. Thank Allah. We still have some people who haven't been damaged by that yet. Looked at another video. Here's another 2-year-old boy sitting on the couch, African American, both of them. And he's sitting there cussing his mouth off. I mean, literally every other word was a cuss word. And he was talking about what he was going to do to someone with his pistol, with his Glock, with his this, with his that. And I'm going to do this, I'm going to F you up, I'm going to do, excuse me, but we bring this up in the Jumu'Ah, but these are important topics for us to understand. We got to know what's going on out here. Talking about what they're going to do, what he going to do with his pistol. He going to do this, he going to stick it in your mouth, he going to blah, 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 blah. This is a 2-year-old. And he wasn't doing it or saying it as though he was just mimicking someone else who he heard say it. He was coming from the depths of his little 2-year-old soul. Now that might sound funny now, but in another 7 or 8 years, any one of us could be the victim of that mind. So I'm saying all of these things, dear believers, to show you how very important having a fitra education really is. The fitra nature that Allah created in each and every human being, that pure nature, we're seeing how young that nature can be contaminated. So we as Muslims have to have a plan, an academic plan, an educational plan, to defeat that scheme of shaitan. Coming from nowhere else but from shaitan, Irajim. May Allah's curse be upon him. They begin this process of retardation of the human soul and the human intellect. They begin that process from birth, really from before birth. They begin it while the baby is in gestation, in his mother's womb. They begin that foolishness by introducing that mother-to-be to all kinds of ideas that go against the natural development of human life. And that baby is then born with somewhat of a proclivity towards that kind of foolishness. All you have to do is keep that kind of foolishness in that child's atmosphere. So what does the prophet say? Praise and peace be upon him. That every child is born upon the fitrah, but it is the parents, the world, beginning with the parents, that make that child something other than fitrah based. And he pointed out certain religions that were in existence at that time. The Christians, the Jews, the Magians, and etc. The polytheists. Why did he point those out? To say that those were evil traditions or evil religions? No. If you understand the context of that hadith, you'll understand that our prophet is saying that those ideas are not complete in terms of their effect on the human nature. One idea says believe in God, but behind it says that God can be reduced to a man. See, that's not a complete idea. Another one of those religions says believe in God, that God chooses certain people to be his messengers and prophets and servants, but they say that only our particular ethnic group can have those prophets and messengers. Nobody else can. So when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam appeared among certain religious orders of his day and time, they rejected him for no less a reason than that he was not a Jew. He was not a child of the part of the children of Israel. They said, well, we hear you and it's the truth. We admit that it's the truth. But we can't follow him because he's not a rabbi. He's not of our religious teaching. He comes with his own book. He doesn't come backing up the book that we have. So those are incomplete ideas. So how do we preserve the excellence that Allah put into this fitrah? This is establishing the Quran's divine legitimacy we're talking about. How do we establish that legitimacy and preserve that legitimacy? Allah preserved that fitrah nature for us with the introduction of salat into the Muslim life. The introduction of salat, something that many of us take for granted. We take it as just a mere ritual that really doesn't have to be paid too much attention to. What we're not understanding is that Allah designed the salat, subhanahu wa ta'ala, highly glorified as Allah, He designed it to be the premier preservative for the internal life not just of the Muslim, of the believer, the mu'min. And again, this Western world got a hint from that language. And from the word salat, they invented the English word salt. And salt used to be the premier substance for preserving the integrity of meats and fish and other products that the seafarers, the people who roamed the sea way before refrigeration was invented, they used to use salt to pack the meats, to pack the fish, so that the integrity of the meat and the fish would be preserved. They looked at the Muslim salat and said, well, that ritual is actually preserving the integrity of the internal life of those people. So they are learning from our book. In some cases, more than we are learning from our book. That's where the shame is, dear Muslim. That there are people who have built civilizations. The European Renaissance came into being because of the European study, beginning in Spain, moving into Italy, and other places that sparked that Renaissance, that period of enlightenment in the human intellect among many people in Europe, brought those civilizations out of barbaric existence, horrific behavior, into the most civilized behavior under the circumstances. Did the same thing on the continent of Africa. This is what we have to understand about our deen and its legitimacy. The greatest achievement of a human being is to establish himself and herself spiritually. We are born as spiritual creatures. When we are born, none of us know anything about our material or our physical existence. The concentration on the part of the infant is not on what this is. Not immediately, not upon birth. The child, for all purposes, all intents and purposes, is not cognizant of itself as a physical baby. But it is cognizant of itself as an emotional form and a creature of desires for things, for food, for comfort, for love, for mercy. So the child is actually brought here by Allah as a spiritual being. And therefore our education of the child, when based on the Quran, is spiritually oriented. The education that this world offers our children is materially oriented. And it is an over-excitement of the human beings, of the child's emotional nature. This world's method of educating involves an over-excitement of the child's emotionality. What does that do? That opens the child up to accept just about anything you tell them if you bring it in the proper emotional package. Now, if I was walking down the street as a 10-year-old and I saw some horrific looking character pop up out of a garbage can full of junk and dirt and funky smell, as a 10-year-old I'd have enough sense to get away from that can. But I gravitate towards it as a 10-year-old if I see it on Sesame Street. They tell us not to hold the hands of strangers, not to go follow strangers. But look at all of the children who follow Big Bird. They don't know what that bird does in his private moments. But because it's given in an emotional package that children's minds will accept, we accept for our children to be a part of that learning process. And then we wonder why, when we get them into a fitra-based environment like our schools, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute, we're going to bring it on home. We wonder why our children are hesitant to learn the deen as we are presenting that deen in its fitra package, We say, well, why are they so adverse to learning the deen? Why are they so adverse to the salat? Why don't they want to fast if they're of the age to fast? Why are they not talking about the character of Muhammad, praise and peace be upon him? It is because most of what they are learning from the environment is anti-fitrah. So they're being programmed, not from high school, not from middle school, not even just from grade school, they're being programmed from birth to reject Allah's way, to reject Allah's natural way of teaching. Allah doesn't excite the intellect with all kinds of colors and all kinds of activity to teach the human being. But when you walk in the average one of these public school classrooms, that's what you run into. A whole bunch of stuff hanging from the ceiling, a whole bunch of stuff, colors on the wall and stuff thrown up and monsters and cartoons and all of these non-fitrah. Allah teaches us through the natural environment. So we need a fitrah-based curriculum that has respect for Allah's natural environment. I hope everyone is understanding what I'm saying. What I'm saying is probably, not even probably, but definitely, the number one issue for Muslims, especially in America. How we acclimate our children academically. For all of the gains that we will make, most, if not all of those gains can be lost in less than a generation if we are not actively teaching our children to respect what Allah has established as a fitrah-based environment for them to live and learn in and make progress in. We're living in two different worlds. The world of the manipulator, the world of the one who is the grand schemer in terms of what human beings can come up with as a lie or as a trick to bring other people into their lasso and corral them and work them and use them as a private economy to build upon their resources at the expense of the average one of us. There's that world, and then there is the world that Allah is bringing in. I said, but where is this world, man? You're sitting on it. You're sitting in it. And if you're conscious of your own growth and development, you're sitting with it. That's the new world that Allah is bringing in, despite what Satan has planned. And Muslims, again, in America, are the prime factors in bringing in the world that Allah said would be inherited by the inheritors. Muslims in America are in the primary seat. We are in the driver's seat. Just study what's happening around the Muslim world. And you'll understand that you can't do all of that and drive at the same time. You can't be at war, you can't be in confusion, you can't be fighting your Muslim brother, killing your Muslim brother and sister. You can't be giving up your spiritual ideas, your religious ideas for political gain. You can't be separating out Muslims. He's a Shia, he's a Sunni, and that other one is this. She doesn't have the niqab, she's not a real Muslim. She got a little curl showing from the khimar. She don't know her deen. He don't have a kufi on, how can he be a really man? We can hear these things whether you whisper them or not. He's an African American. That means he don't know nothing. He don't really know nothing. He's not a part of the ulama. He hasn't been sanctioned by such and such country or such and such body. You have to get back to what Allah makes legitimate in His Quran. And Allah says He is the teacher, not the ulama. We respect those who are in positions who have sacrificed their lives for learning, for scholarship. Many of them went to jail. Many of them were punished in cruel ways for holding on and maintaining their deen and the position in their deen. But we don't ever want to make the mistake of thinking that the only ones whom Allah blesses are those who spent years in study. Because that's just not true according to the Quran. So I'm saying all of this so that we will pay more attention to the job that we have in front of us of keeping the proper education and educational attitude in front of our children. Because this world is doing nothing but sitting back looking for strays. They watch all of the sheep and then they look for the one that leaves the pack, that leaves the herd, and they go after that one. Many of our children now are being set up to be strays. Strays from the deen. She has the name Muhammad, Abdul Rahman. But she's doing things that those with the name Muhammad and Abdul Rahman and Abdul Aziz would never think to do as a Muslim. Some of our children are involved in some of the most horrendous actions or acts because they don't understand what this deen really is. Because their lives got snatched away from them at early ages. And most of it happened right in the home. We like to say it's the school's fault. It's the professor's fault that he became an atheist. When you don't understand that the seeds of atheism and agnosticism and all of those other isms were planted early in the life of that Muslim. Right there in your living room. Because you didn't monitor. Huh? So what travels from your living room is going to eventually end up in your classroom. And if it's in the classroom, it's just a matter of time before it ends up in the society. So I pray that all of us have understood what Allah has blessed us to introduce today in terms of the importance of establishing the Quran as your legitimate source of knowledge, as the go-to book of guidance for those who believe. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. It is guidance for those who pay attention. That's really what it's saying. Those who are consciously attentive to all of those things in the environment that are put there as traps, so that the human excellence will never, never be able to flower and flourish in the world. We have to become more conscious. Our prophet said that the ink of the scholar is more precious than the blood of the martyr. See, we hear these things, but they don't register. Oh my goodness, look at what is happening to Muslims all over the world. We're being slaughtered by the thousands, really by the millions. And there are people fighting in the cause of Islam and dying as martyrs. And we're speaking up against the injustice of these people who are bringing our Muslim brothers and sisters to their physical death. But our Prophet ﷺ is reported to have said that the ink of the scholar, those who write books on subjects pertinent to human life, is actually more of a value to us than even those who shed their blood, who met their demise, who are guaranteed automatic Jannah for the martyr. But he said that the ink of the scholar is more precious. So how many of us should be writing? And if you can't write, how many of us should be supporting education? See, we walk out, they say we need some falus for the schools. We need this for the... And as soon as we hear the words money and school put together, here they go again. Should have never opened the school. You couldn't support it, you should never open it. I didn't open it for my child. What do you think, I'm going to be the only one paying for the school? That's crazy. And the premier idea for us as Muslims is the Quran and education. And I'm not supposed to support education. You know what I'm saying to the world? I'm not really Muslim. The least we're saying is I'm not really a Muslim. I'm one who gets up every morning and says, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I say that every day, all day long. but my actions never meet up with that proclamation. Because why? I think other people are supposed to do it for me. I don't have no money. I can't let somebody else pay for that. Look at how much I pray though. But as for you personally, what have you done communally? What have you done for the academic growth and development of your community, called the Muslim community? That's what we need to hammer home. Just a few more minutes. So dear Muslims, what we do from this point on is going to determine whether or not we are helping to increase our children's fitrah and their connection to that God-given fitrah, or whether we will choose to continue to participate in the fitrah's mutilation. And I can't put it any softer than that. When we do not support education that is fitrah-based, as we have here right in this facility, schools should be over. There should be a waiting list already of people ready to put their children into this Muslim, Islamic, fitrah-based environment. I can't afford it. Work it out. Think about whether you can afford what might happen to that child 10 years from now because you didn't do it. Will you be able to afford that? When they look at you as a father, speaking especially to the men who have that obligation to support this educational effort for their children. Will you be able to afford how your child looks at you? When you see these Muslims graduating with honors, with degrees, with certificates, with grants, and all you had to do was find a way to sacrifice to get you. You had to do like, what's that television show? Let's Make a Deal. Say, listen, I can't afford the whole tuition, but I tell you what, I'm only working 2 days a week. The other 3 or 4 or 5 days a week, I'm going to be in the masjid doing whatever you ask me to do. Can we make a deal? And find something for me to do that means that you don't have to pay somebody else to do what I'm going to do for free or in compensation for the amount of money that I can't contribute to my child's education. My child has to be in this school, amen. Has to be in this school, director of education. If they have to sit outside the door every day and just get the little trickle of what they can get from your teachers walking in and out, I'm going to have to make a show to show that I'm serious about my children's education. This is no joke, Muslims. Lastly, the proper moral and spiritual attitudes that we are supposed to have as Muslims has been made illegitimate also. So some of you sitting on the rug right now have no idea what I'm talking about. Because this world has conditioned you to be insensitive to the true call that the Quran is calling you to. And the true weight of responsibility that is on each and every one of us as individuals when it comes to the education of ourselves and also of our family members, particularly our children, our wives and our children. This at some point has to register. The fitrah has been hijacked. If that's all I said, that's the khutbah for today. It has been hijacked. It has been hit in the head, kicked in the butt, whatever I can get away with saying. Kicked in the rear, mask taped up, mouth taped up. I'm talking about our fitrah. Eyes blinded, nose can't even breathe anymore. I'm talking about your fitrah nature and the fitrah nature of our children. And that's how you can get a 1-year-old twerking up against the wall. That's how you can get a 2-year-old talking about who he gonna kill when he get his hands on his pistols. And not to mention the myriad of other examples that we can draw from that does not represent us necessarily as a Muslim community, although some of us are going through those changes and challenges ourselves with our children. But it represents what will definitely happen if you don't support what Allah tells you to support. Allah's favor is upon those who exercise the best of the guidance that he has given us to employ in the life. Not to just treat the deen as though it's a giant ritual. Jumu'ah's over, that's it, I don't have to do anything else. I don't even see the bucket. I don't even hear the sister asking for help. I don't hear the teachers crying about the needs of the school. And I not feel sensitive to that. And I feel like I have to do something in order to help advance that cause. So may Allah forgive us for our wrongs. May Allah bless us with the right intention. And may Allah guide us towards the purity of His Quran and the purity connected with the life example of Muhammad the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ali Ibrahim wa barik ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ali Ibrahim fil alamin innaka Hamidum Majid. So in the next couple of minutes, we're just going to outline some of the needs of this particular edifice, Masjidullah and its connected entities. And inshallah, once the message is given to you clearly, then it is between you and Allah, whether you follow up or not. This first announcement is concerning the roof of this building, this edifice. We collected about $1,000 last week to help with the roof, but we still need $2,000 to be able to make the down payment. And inshallah, we need to raise that. Without me having to raise my voice, we need to raise that $2,000 before our congregation leaves here today, inshallah. So we're asking that you put at least $20 in the bucket today to help with this project. The winter is coming. And you know how fierce the winters can be in the north. So please do what you can do in that respect. As far as the Mecca school program goes, and if you don't know about the Mecca program, it's a school that's designed for children that are 6 weeks old. See, sometimes people miss that. They think we're saying 6 years old. Like most schools, 5 years old, 6 years old, This is a learning environment and also a daycare establishment that is designed for your babies, my babies, 6 weeks old and older. So what better hands can we have our children in? Or can we recommend that other people have their children in than the hands that Allah has blessed us to extend as an edifice, a religious edifice in this neighborhood? So, alhamdulillah, we're asking, let's say this, 10 new students enrolled as a result of the announcement last week. Alhamdulillah. 10 students from one announcement. So Mecca is a great model for Islamic growth and business success in our community. So please stop by. Right after the Jumu'ah, we're going to take a tour. For those of you who are not familiar with the Mecca school establishment, we're going to take a tour of the facility, of the building, in the classrooms, etc. So let us all be here for that. I'm going to be in the front of the line for that. So if your family is here, bring your family. If your friends are here, if outside visitors are here, this is the day that you should say, take a part of this, take 10 minutes and come on this tour so that you can see what the Muslims are doing in the community. People are always talking about what the Muslims ain't doing in the community. We're giving you a chance to see what the Muslims are doing in the community. And the ones who need to know most of what the Muslims are doing in the community are the Muslims. The Muslims who don't know what we're doing. You wonder why you don't have outside people interested, because you're not interested. And that's not all of you, but it's too many of you. And how do we know that? Because the enrollment is not up to par. Do you know that if we had 100 students registered, right now I think we have about 40, we have 40 students registered, and we have to have 65 students just to break even. Just so that there's no money being spilt. I call it blood spillage. Angel asked the Lord, are you going to create one who will make mischief and shed the blood? Every time you got a hole in your economy, and money is being drained out, that's the same thing as blood being spilled out of your body. Because you need that blood to circulate in your body, and you need that money and those finances and that economy to circulate in your community for the good health of your community. So every time you say, I don't want to participate, you are the one with the dagger in the side of the community, allowing that money that you could have contributed, and you and Allah knows what you can contribute. If it's $1, it was something. And excuse me if I have the kind of tone of voice that sounds like I'm beating up on anybody. I'm not. I'm admonishing myself as well as admonishing you. So just a couple of more announcements. That school, Mecca, is hiring. We're looking for Muslim teachers with a background in early childhood education. So stop by the office to learn more about this great employment opportunity. Also, the Eid community, we know the Eid al-Adha is approaching, fast approaching. And the Eid committee has decided that Eid al-Adha prayers will be held at Masjidullah this year. And we need as many believers as possible to help us host this great honor for Masjidullah. So please come to the WAM meeting at 6 a.m. on Saturday and find out how you can get the blessings of helping to host the believers in the Feast of Sacrifice. Alhamdulillah. We're also trying to compile a directory of all of the community's Muslim business establishments in the city. And we want to help make them successful, so come to that same meeting in order to find out how you can help. So I think there's enough said on that topic. And I pray to Allah that it has registered with the importance that it was intended. Allah knows. And we're asking those of you who can, make sure that you contribute minimum $20 when the bucket is passed around. If you have to rush out back to work or rush out back to other concerns, have the money in your hand as you exit. And I'm sure there will be a receptacle before you get to the door that will gladly accept that sadaqah from you. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. May Allah forgive us for our sins, for our mistakes. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. We ask our Lord to give us the excellence of this life, to give us the excellence of the next life, and to save us from the torment of the fire. He calls us.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Hayya ala salah, hayya ala falah. Qad qamati salah, qad qamati salah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah. Allahu Akbar. Rabbana lakal hamd. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. ربنا لك الحمد. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله